So I thought I would share with you guys a very unconventional and creative side to my practice that I have not seen discussed anywhere else in the tarot community. This is something that I've developed over the years because I love to collect tarot decks. I love artwork. I love having new decks in my collection, but I hate studying. I hate homework. I hate the concept of you have a new deck and now I've got to like spend hours and hours and hours like getting to know the deck before I can actually use it. So this is a shortcut that I use to just have fun getting to know a deck. And it's so important that you get to know the language and the style and the artwork of a deck before you use it, because every single deck has its own perspective. Every single creator has their own perspective when it comes to how they want to communicate ideas or concepts in artwork or imagery or archetypes. And you want to kind of diversify your palette. You want to experience the deck as the creator intended it and not just have blanket universal meanings for every single deck of cards. What I mean by this is there's no one standard definition for a card or an archetype in tarot. Think of archetypes as universal concepts, but there's many different ways that we can approach and experience these concepts. And so every artist, when they create their own tarot deck, they're creating it from their own point of view, their own experience. And when we use different decks, we get different readings, we get different wisdom, we get different insights, we get different reactions. And that is one of the things that I love about deck collecting, of course. However, who has time to do deck study? Who has the time to sit down and to like laboriously go through a brand new deck? Not me. And so one of the things that I developed was I would pair my decks with a book, and I would use them as bookmarks as I was reading a book. Now I have a stack of books here and I just grabbed a couple and I thought I would share them with you and kind of walk you guys through my process. When I say I pair my tarot decks with my books, what do I mean? What do I mean? How do I do this and why? So today I have 5 different books and I have 5 different decks. And I thought I would just show you kind of behind the scenes of how I enhance my connection to a brand new deck, how I have fun with it, how I incorporate reading and writing and all that fun stuff when learning a new deck so it doesn't feel like homework, it doesn't feel like a chore. Okay, so the first deck that I have here in the first book. So in my last video, I did a walkthrough of the Murder of Crows Tarot, which is just this really fun, gothic, dark style of deck. You know, it's really beautiful. The themes of this deck are very fantasy, surreal, gothic dream. I'll just show you a couple cards so you can see what it looks like. It's kind of creepy. Whoop. It's kind of dark. It's definitely high contrast. It's giving graveyard vibes for sure. Here we go. We've got masked figures, crows, that kind of thing. So what book did I pair with this? And I actually doodled on the cover of this book. So this is the actual cover if you buy it in the store. So the book I chose is There's a Graveyard That Dwells in Man. And this is a collection of short stories by David Tibet. And they're all kind of strange fiction, horror, eerie, esoteric. And what I love about this book is it's a collection of short stories. So with each short story, you could pull a new tarot card. And there are a bunch of like obscure authors. They're not all written by David Tibet. So what I would do is I would start a story. You know, each short story is only a couple pages long. And then I would pull some tarot cards and I would use the tarot card as a bookmark as I'm reading the story. So as I'm reading the story, I've got the artwork in my card next to it, and I'm just kind of exploring the artwork in the card as I'm reading the story. So it's kind of nice to have a tarot deck that enhances the vibe or the feeling or the themes of the book that you're reading. And one of the things that I love to do in my personal challenges is I try to pair the deck or the card with whatever it is that I'm reading at the moment. So let's say for this card, I pulled the Three of Wands here. As if I'm using this as a bookmark, as I'm reading, I will try to see if I can find the Three of Wands archetype in the passages that I'm reading at the time. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And it's a way to kind of enhance the study of your deck. So that is the book that I paired with the Murder of Crows Tarot. The other pairing that I did that was super fun was with the Wild Unknown Tarot. This deck, I'm sure you guys have seen it. I will do a walkthrough of it. It's a very popular deck. It is very beautiful artwork. I mean, it's got a lot of animal themes. Here, let me show it up to you. Animals, black and white imagery, minimalist artwork. And the minimalist artwork kind of aligns with the wilderness, the mysticism, the creation of like civilization in the wild. And I wanted to find a book that focused on the themes of identity, transformation, and maybe nature's instincts. But there is, of course, you know, the black and white vibes of the Wild Unknown kind of give me a little darker elements. So the book that I paired with it, and speaking of which, I am one of those people that abuses their books. I am so sorry. I'm sure that that's gonna end me up in like reader's purgatory somewhere, but all of these books that I'm showing you have been thoroughly beat up, okay? They do. And that's because when I am reading a book, I carry it around with me everywhere, and I love to like drink coffee and tea, and I will inevitably spill it on whatever I'm reading. So all of these books are damaged. I'm so sorry. So the Wild Unknown I paired with this book called Slewfoot, written by Brahm. Here's the cover. Very cool. Of course, you see I have like water damage. I've beaten this poor book to a pulp. But this book is really fun. It follows this girl. She's in like a very Puritan colonial style town, and her husband dies, and all of a sudden this creature in the woods starts harassing her farm. So again, paired with the Wild Unknown, we've got themes of civilization versus nature, or the concept of, you know, the wilderness and the wild. And it's just a fun, easy book to read. It also has illustrations in it, which is gorgeous. I read this book super fast. It was fun, and it was witchy and fantasy and easy to read, and it paired really nicely with the Wild Unknown. So what I would do is the same thing, is I would take a tarot card and I would use it as a bookmark, or I would follow along, and then every couple of pages I would just pick up a new card. I just get a brand new card, and then I'd keep on reading, and I would try to find a way to connect the card with the passages that I was reading at the time. Or if anything, I would just look at it as like just a visual, just like a visual interest as I was reading. But I would try to get through as many cards as I could, right? I wouldn't just have one card as a bookmark. I would try to go through the entire deck. And it's kind of amazing because as I'm enjoying the book, which I would be reading anyway, I'm also sitting and contemplating with the artwork in the card, and I'm understanding the archetype. I'm trying to make connections in the archetype, And it's a very cool moment when you find a scene in a book that you're reading and it perfectly aligns with the card that you've chosen from your tarot deck. It's very cool. It's very cool. It's like an archetypal crossword puzzle word search. So the next deck book pairing that I have here, and again, apologies, I spilled my coffee on this book. I'm like mildly embarrassed that I am doing this for you guys, but this is why I do a lot of audiobooks and Kindle, because when I buy physical books, they get, unfortunately, abused by me. I am so sorry. So this book is called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rubin. It is so fun. It's an easy book to read. You could almost open it at any chapter. This book feels like you're having a conversation with like a mentor. It feels like you're having a conversation with someone who has had a very successful career being a creative, and it almost feels like you're having a philosophical conversation with the author. And you can open to any page. It's like, it's not like it follows a plot, so it's more like a conversation. But the deck that I paired with this is called the Aquarian Tarot. Let me open it. Now, this is kind of fun, and the reason why I chose this deck is honestly because the cover. The cover just had like Art Deco vibes, and the Aquarian Tarot also has Art Deco vibes. So let me show you some of the artwork in the card. You can see it's very innovative. It is all about emphasizing intuition, creativity, insight. It's got some 70s vibes to it, I think. I think this deck came out in the 70s. But it's super fun and it's very creative. And the style of the book and the style of the artwork and the card, it's all about breaking free from convention, embracing just your own creative journey. So again, as I'm reading the book, I'm using a card as a bookmark and just adding it. It's just enhancing my reading experience. There's no right or wrong way to do this. For me, it's just like, how can I incorporate experiencing a deck with things that I'm already doing and loving and enjoying? You know, I love to read and I love to think. And I also love to journal and write and do all that stuff. But, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. And the artwork in tarot is so universal. It is so easy to pair with other types of media or other types of art. So if you find yourself where you have a deck and maybe you don't want to study it, maybe you're stuck, or maybe you're bored and you're like me and you don't like homework, try pairing it with a book, especially a book that like gives you a certain vibe. Okay, so the next book deck pairing that I have, the book is called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and this one was a lot more serious tone. It was definitely about the guidance about how to live a spiritual life or a meaningful life. And it was definitely on the process of dying. And I had ordered, oh goodness, where did I put it? Oh goodness, I had ordered a deck. I'm going to share with you guys. I don't have it on my table right now, but I had ordered the Death Doula Oracle. And I think that would have been a better pairing for this, because this book is really about the Tibetan experience of dying and how to prepare for a passage into, you know, the other phase of life, and how to work through death and grief. And understanding the cycles of existence, essentially. So this is a more serious book. I do love the pages. It's very easy to read. And when I was reading this book, the deck that I paired with it is called The Tarot of Light and Shadow by John Matthews. So this deck is kind of different because it's actually 2 decks in one. And so there's one deck that is light, that is made with tan cards. And there's a second deck that is shadow, that's blue cards. So it's actually, instead of 78 cards, it's 156. And they're kind of pippish, but this is what they look like. And so the dark blue represent maybe the shadow elements of the card or the darker elements of that archetype. And in the guidebook, they explain it in a lot more detail. And the tan or the light cards represent the more bright light aspects. So it's kind of interesting because the way that this tarot deck was designed was to kind of make a space for both the positive and the negative perspectives of an archetype, both the light and the shadow that we experience in our existence. And this deck was really hard for me to study. Like, I don't know if because it's a pip deck, so I'm not like naturally attuned to pip decks, but I definitely needed to pair this deck with a book in order to get fluent and comfortable with it. This is not a deck that I would just pick up and start using on its own. You really have to get to know this deck. And the artwork is very cool. It's very, it's very cultural, I would say. The line work is very interesting. Kind of reminds me of like an animation style artwork. There's a ton of detail in this. But this was definitely a deck that I struggled to connect with on its own. I needed to pair it with a book that I was reading to really kind of explore the depths of the light and shadow. And the Tibetan book of the Living and the Dying is definitely it. I would also pair this book with the Death Doula Oracle, which I don't have on my table right now. Sorry. But if I did, I would show you that oracle. But if you're someone that's interested in maybe the interconnected states of being, or how do you process death and dying and grief, how to assist others through difficult transitions in their life, how to explore basically the light and the shadow of existence, this is a really good book. It's more serious, but it's a really good book. The next book that I have to share with you guys, I haven't started this one. Okay, I have not finished, like confession time. I have not finished. It's kind of been a wee bit of a struggle to get into this. It's called Godel, Escher, and Bach. An Eternal Golden Braid. This book, I don't know if I can recommend this book. It is not for everybody. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. If you are an intellectual who enjoys mathematics, music, and art, and you want to explore the nature of human thought and consciousness, especially in a dialogue format, which is what, like ancient philosophers used, I would recommend this book if you are nerdy like me. If you are looking for a story or something like light and easy, I would not recommend this book. I haven't finished it yet, so I can't make it like a definitive recommendation on it. But basically, Hofstadter explores kind of the relationship between mathematics, because there's a mathematician, Godel, artist, MC Escher, and composer, of course, Sebastian Bach. And using these three elements of math and art and music, he explores kind of the dynamic intellectual facilities of man, human thought. And it is a big book. I think it's bigger than I thought it would be. It's very cool. There's some parts that I really enjoy, but it's definitely more of an intellectual exercise. And the dialogue in the book is not for everybody, okay? But I have enjoyed it so far, and the deck that I have paired with it, you probably are not going to be surprised, is the Thoth deck. So the Thoth Tarot, very similar, is known for its rich, intricate symbolism. And I felt like that kind of paired with the book's deep dive into the abstract and the symbolic concept of systems. So I wanted basically an intellectual deck to go with an intellectual book, and maybe have artwork that was meant to push you to think critically, explore connections between disparate fields, right? Like, how can you cognitively enhance your perspective? How do you gain more flexibility and insight? The Thoth deck is a lot, it's more complex in its own way, and it actually pairs very nicely with this book. But it's not like an easy read. It's not like some of these other books that I've been able to just whip up really quickly, drive through really quickly. So these are a couple books and deck pairings that I have, and I would have more, but I don't have enough space on my table to share everything with you guys. Oh, I have one more actually. I knew it. Okay, this one is such a favorite. I had to save the best for last, okay? The best for last. And the book is called Ishmael. Gorgeous book. I've actually read this book multiple times, and it's not as abused as some of my other books, okay? But it has unfortunately seen some water damage and abuse. But this book is beautiful. It is well written. The themes and concepts in this book are so enjoyable, and every time I read it, I enjoy it in a different way. I've read this book multiple times. Basically, I don't want to spoil it. It's written by Quinn, and it is like a spiritual adventure, and it is a conversation on humanity by a talking gorilla. That's all I'm going to say about this book. But it is really fun. It is really fun. And if you like the discussion of humanity and purpose and history, and again, going into themes of the wild and the wilderness and our personal evolution, it is a very beautiful, thought-provoking book by Quinn. It's also very easy to read. It's not that big of a book. It's a beautiful book. I love this story. And the deck that I paired with Ishmael is the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And I will do a full walkthrough on this deck because it's very unique. It's not your typical tarot deck by any means. The artwork is stunning. It is vibrant, ethereal, beautiful, and it just really paired very well with Ishmael, the book. So I would just randomly pick a card, and I would start reading, and I would use it as a bookmark. And as I'm reading, I'm looking at the artwork. I'm using it as a, maybe because I need to have glasses, but I use it to help me read down the page. But I'm also just like enjoying the artwork in the card. And I'll read the guidebook because the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, it does have its own system. It's not like a regular tarot deck. And then like a couple of pages will go through and I'll just pick up another deck. I'll pick up another card. And as I'm reading, I will be enjoying both the book and my tarot deck. And it's really cool. Until you try it, you're not going to know what I'm talking about, but it's really cool to enhance the way that you view a tarot deck with your reading experience. It's really cool to explore and think about literary concepts. I can't even talk today. Literary concepts and artwork. And maybe I'll share some literary analysis with you guys with tarot. And I do this not just with books, but I also do this with film and music. But film, of course, is a little bit different because you kind of like watch a movie. So I'll show you guys my techniques on how I blend watching a movie and learning tarot. But if you have the time to sit and enjoy and read a book, it's really, really fun to pair it with a tarot deck. So I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere. I've seen people talk about journaling when it comes to tarot, and I also love to do that too. Like if there's an archetypal concept or theme about a book or an idea or a memory, I love to journal with tarot. Tarot is a very creative journaling tool. But just combining a tarot deck with your reading, whatever it is that you're reading, it doesn't have to be spiritually related. It could be, you know, it could be anything that you're reading. Just pair it with tarot and see how your understanding of your tarot deck deepens, your connection to the artwork deepens. If you're like me and you don't like to do homework, which I don't like to do, I don't like to study my decks. I like to experience my decks. I like to enjoy the artwork in my decks. I love art, and every single deck is like having a little private gallery in my hands, right? I love experiencing the artwork. I love the creativity that people bring when it comes to exploring archetypes. And when I think about reading, I also love reading because you're exploring other people's concepts and other people's thoughts. And any activity that gets me off of my phone and into the world or into my own head is an activity that I enjoy. Right? I want to make another video about how the internet is killing our intuition and our ability to think deeply about things. And I genuinely feel like you can't read tarot if you don't think deeply. Like, people struggle reading tarot all the time. And part of it is because they need to train their brain to think in terms of creativity and archetypes and artwork and different concepts. And you don't get that if you never spend the time doing it, if you never spend time nurturing your own thoughts, your own creativity, your own existence. And so it doesn't necessarily matter if you're reading, you know, Slewfoot, or if you're reading about, you know, Godel and Bach. It's all part of the human experience. It's all part of the human consciousness that is tarot, that is life. And if you really want to develop your skills as a spiritual healer or a tarot reader, having that diversity, having that dynamic ability to draw from many, many different sources of creativity is a wonderful tool, and it's a wonderful asset. So for me, I read books, and I pair my books with my tarot decks, and it just enhances my reading experience. It really does. So I hope that this video has inspired you or encouraged you to go grab a book and go grab a tarot deck And, you know, put your phone down and get lost in the pages of a book and deepen your appreciation for artwork and think about archetypes and meanings in different ways, different perspectives, maybe than just your own. Like, reading a book is a great way of seeing and exploring other thoughts. So anyway, this was like an unplanned video, and it's very chatty, but I have a lot of books, and I have a lot of decks, and these are just the 5 that I pulled up. They're not like my favorite. Well, I do love Ishmael, the Daniel Quinn, but I definitely have more if you guys want some more recommendations. But I thought I would just introduce you to the concept of using tarot in a more creative way, because I have not heard of this. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen other people talk about reading and incorporating tarot in our reading experience. Anyway, take care, everyone. Until next time. Bye.